Everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Ask Leah. Tonight's question came in this afternoon via a private message, and it's a cracking question that I actually do get asked a bit at some of my workshops, and it has to do with how to handle it when a member of your team quite consistently talks over the top of you when you're trying to deal with an issue. So you're already handling it, you're having a conversation perhaps in your way, in your style, and this team member consistently speaks over the top of them when they're dealing with the issue, and it really frustrates this person. And she said to me, I know I should say something, but I'm the peacekeeper and not a boat rocker, and I'm worried about the reaction I might get if I raise it. Now, like I said, this is a very, very common thing that comes up. It often happens in meetings as well, where people might be trying to raise a point and someone jumps in over the top. So a couple of suggestions, and you are right. To this person who said, I know I should say something, this is the sort of issue that often gets overlooked and that we don't speak up on. But when we don't speak up on it, maybe because we don't want to rock the boat, or we're a bit of a people pleaser, or we're a passive communicator, what happens is it tends to escalate and get worse. The other person always talks over the top of you. You get really frustrated. That seething anger just builds and builds. And then what often happens is you either end up so mad that it becomes passive aggressive, because you are so mad you don't say something, but you show that you're upset in other interactions with the person. So it can damage your relationship with them, often with that person not even realizing, because often the person who interjects has no awareness of it. And look, that can be me sometimes. Sometimes I can be like a bull at a gate. And it's something I have to be very aware of. The other thing that can happen, though, is you don't say anything, and that frustration builds and builds, and then you just blow, or you snap badly in the moment, and, you're worried about offending this person or rocking the boat, and you're actually, by not saying something, probably increasing the chances of that happening. So some tips. There's, I suppose, two ways you can go about this, and you might do one or the other, or you might actually do both. So again, we're dealing with a situation where someone is being spoken over the top of by a member of her team when she's already dealing with an issue. So you can deal with this in the moment. There's some pluses and downsides of it. When you deal with it in the moment, the downsides are you can be more inclined to react emotionally, because it is in the moment and you're frustrated. So you have to be pretty comfortable that you can have a good handle on it and represent yourself how you want to represent yourself. So if you don't think that that's where you're at, probably don't have the conversation in the moment. If you were going to call it out in the moment, you might say something like, you know what, I do appreciate your help. And if you say this, it's not in a passive aggressive way, okay? I do appreciate your help, but I've got this under control, okay? And like so much in communication, it comes down to your tone, how this will be taken. They might still get a bit uppity, especially if it's not normal behavior for you. But if your tone is warm and your voice calm rather than snitchy, there's a big difference between, hey, thanks for your help, I've got this under control, compared to, hey, I don't need your help, I've got this under control, right? Going to be taken two very different ways. Now, this can be a good strategy to do it in the moment if you've already done this other strategy that I'm going to give you. And that is to have the conversation not in the moment. If this is something that goes on, and this is what often my advice with any difficult conversation, so often we avoid, and then we have the conversation in the moment and, like I said, get emotional. So try to bring it up one-on-one when there's no stress. And I do have a 10-step difficult conversation difficult conversation script for this that might be useful for you. And I'm more than happy if anyone wants a copy of that. It is in my book, but if you'd like a copy, just pop your email address in the comments below, or send me a private message with your email address, or even just send me a private message and I can send you an attachment of this script. But what it will do, getting clear in your head about what you want to say, it will help give you the courage to have this conversation. Now, you're not making this into a big deal. And that strategy I often teach people about, inoculating first, is really useful in this sort of situation, because you might say to the person, hey, wanted to have a quick chat with you. And look, it's a bit awkward for me to raise because I really value our working relationship. Okay, so straight away you're putting them at ease that my intention here is to, have this conversation, but it's not to, start a conflict or anything like that. So, they understand I've got to listen, but it's not a bad thing. And then you need to explain what's happening, because it might be crystal clear to you that they always speak over the top of you, but they really might be oblivious. And I did message you back, but I haven't heard back at the time of going to air. The question that I had for you, because it does impact how we answer it, is, do you think when they're talking over the top of you that they are misguidedly trying to help you? Maybe they think you are struggling and they're trying to jump in. Maybe if you're a passive communicator, you're thinking and processing it, and they're that more direct person and coming over the top like a bullet at gate. It's, like I can be guilty of. It doesn't make it okay by any means, but that's quite different from, are they coming over and interjecting and speaking over the top of you because they're contradicting you and suggesting different approaches. Okay, so that information would help. But even regardless of either way, give them the why, and it can be a great place to include lines like, I'm sure it's not your intention. You may not even have noticed. However, and then you want to be specific if you can, because you need to give them examples. So draw it, I wanted to have a chat to you about the conversation I was having with, and I'll just call them Amy, that I was having with Amy the other day. I'm not sure if you noticed, but while I was handling that, you interjected with a suggestion. Now, I appreciate that you were trying to help there. I genuinely do appreciate that. However, I had that in hand. I was dealing with it. And this is where you have to explain why it's an issue for you. So it might be something like, I was dealing with it. I appreciate you were trying to help. However, when you made suggestions over the top of what I was trying to explain, I felt that it undermined my authority and was a bit disrespectful for the conversation that I was trying to have. And then you might say something like, what, I appreciate that we've got different styles. You like direct communication. I'm more of a thinker. So I take that softer approach, and I don't know you well enough to know if that is you or not. I'm making lots of assumptions here based on the limited information I have. And then you've got to finish off by asking for what you want and need. And I appreciate this is a real challenge for people who struggle with conflict and confrontation. So it's not about being demanding, but it's actually asking for what you want and need. And in this case, it sounds like that is, what would be great is if you let me finish that conversation, and then if you had anything further to add, you could add it after I'd finished speaking. Or if you had a different opinion about my approach, maybe you could pull me aside and have a one-on-one with me rather than do it in front of our colleagues. Now, when you frame a conversation this way, even if the other person gets defensive, again, it's about your tone and your response. So you stay super calm and, really, I appreciate it's not your intention, but this is what I need, okay? Again, I'm super happy to send that script through if it'll help. Now, a little tip that can help you manage your emotions in a stressful situation if you have this conversation. And this tip's front of mind tonight because I got a beautiful message also this afternoon from someone who was at a recent workshop who heard me give this tip and actually put it in place at a funeral recently where they had to speak and they didn't realize they had to speak, and they got up and they were quite overwhelmed, and they used this tactic to help manage themselves in the moment. And that's a little trick that I use to ground you and remind you to take a deep breath and just put a pause to settle your nerves. Now, when I say this in workshops, I always say you have to ground that breath with something physical. And the reason for that is because if you walk away saying, oh yeah, Leah said manage my emotions or manage my nerves. Yeah, I've got to do that bit. I've got to remember to take a deep breath. Here's the thing, you'll never do it. You won't, because in the moment you're overwhelmed, you won't think to do it. So a couple of ways to ground yourself and help you stay calm in the moment. There is, let me try to get this in camera, a pressure point right in here. Okay, right in there. There's a pressure point in there. And you can just be, oh, I'll probably need to stand up to do it. You can be, and excuse my gorgeous wife's t-shirt. So you can grab that pressure point in there, and you can be standing there like this and grab that pressure point. And what it does is if you start doing this regularly, and I encourage you to do it not in difficult conversations, just anytime you feel your emotions start to go, grab that pressure point and make grabbing that pressure point the reminder to take a deep breath. And the more you practice it and create this habit, the more you are likely to use it in a challenging conversation or situation where you can grab that pressure point, and the minute you grab it, it is the trigger to pause and take a deep breath. Okay, some people like to grab their pinky and they'll just do that out in front of them. You know, it doesn't look like anything big's going on, but it doesn't matter what it is, but you need to find something physical to ground yourself in the reality of the situation and take a deep breath. So I hope that helps tonight. I can't speak. It has been a big couple of weeks. And again, if anyone is keen to get their hands on that difficult conversation script, and again, it's not a script that you print out and take into your next difficult conversation, but it's a great little structure to consider and help frame difficult conversations so you can have them without them being difficult, so that it's a calm conversation. That's it from me tonight. I was going to touch on calm the farm at times of challenge and pressure. It is the topic of my conversation with Bryce on Gippsland FM tomorrow morning at 6:45, 104.7 if you're keen to listen in. I'll be sharing a couple of tips on how to manage you when the world's going a bit crazy around you. So it's a bit of a timely conversation, and it's one that if I don't have any questions come in through the week, I'll address next week. Have a great week, everyone, and all the best. Cheers.